Miko. And then once we get to Miko, we'll go into a short coast right before we separate stage 1 from stage 2, which we call the upper stack portion of Antares. We'll continue to coast a little bit longer, about 30 seconds before fairing separation, and then we'll have an internal separation where the stage 2 flies out of the external upper stack. So once stage 2 is completed of the upper stack, the stage 2 ignites for a 2.5-minute burn that puts Cygnus real close to their orbit. And then Cygnus will coast a little bit to ensure everything is stable, and then Cygnus will be released into the desired orbit. So after Cygnus is released, it will go through comm checks, and then about an hour or so after we separate, Cygnus will release its solar arrays and be on its way to the International Space Station. And I believe you at NASA, you guys also showed the solar arrays deployment sometime, so you guys all might get to see that again later. But in summary, it takes approximately Cygnus 9 minutes to get to orbit, so it takes some time, but it is pretty fast.
Well, Christina, we're looking forward to welcoming Cygnus aboard the International Space Station, and of course, we'll have you back to join us after launch as well. So do you have any final words before launch today?
No, I don't. Go Antares and go Cygnus.
All right, thanks, Christina. You just heard from Northrop Grumman, our Antares System Engineering Program Manager, Christina Halona. Stay tuned after launch for a post-launch interview with Christina again and an interview with Jeff Arend, NASA's Systems Engineering Integration Office Manager. Again, mostly sunny skies for launch today back at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport at NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, and temperatures are now about 83 degrees Fahrenheit at the pad. Again, going up on Cygnus today is more than 8,200 pounds of research, crew supplies, and hardware, which is Cygnus's heaviest load to date. Within that cargo is 3,078 pounds of crew supplies, 2,346 pounds of science investigations, 33 pounds of spacewalk equipment, 2,286 pounds of vehicle hardware, and 98 pounds of computer resources. Cygnus will also carry a new mounting bracket that astronauts will attach to the port side of the station's backbone truss during a spacewalk planned for later this month. The mounting bracket will enable the installation of the next pair of iROSA solar arrays at a later date. Now let's take a quick look at some of the scientific investigations traveling to the space station on this mission.
That 3D.
And of course, it's always exciting for the crew to receive new experiments, but they'll also have some extra goodies arriving. Also flying on Cygnus today are some treats for the crew, just to name a few. The crew will be receiving apples, tomatoes, kiwis, pizza kits, and cheese assortments.
CMD. Yeah, you're going to transfer Cygnus to launch mode. In work. Copy in work.
Coming up on 15 minutes from launch today, all systems are still on track for an on-time launch today at 5:01 and 5 seconds p.m. Central Time, 6:01 and 5 seconds p.m. Eastern Time.
Can you provide status of trajectory file for launch operation?
LC, GNC1, trajectory file does not require an update.
Copy that. We'll check 403. And Ops 1 404 not required today, 405 not required.
Copy, LC.
And Core 1 LC, countdown 1.
Yeah, LC, I've got step 394 for you. Fuel level does not require adjustment.
Roger that. Prop 2, step 395, ARM OCCS for no adjustment to fuel level.
And OCCS AC/DC armed.
AC/DC confirmed.
Copy. Check 395, 396.
And OCCS configured for no adjustment to fuel level.
Check 397. Admin, be advised, step 398 not required. Step 399 not required. And launch team, we're coming up on T-minus 14 minutes. We'll be polling for our final countdown in about a minute and a half.
Just to highlight some upcoming milestones, about 12 minutes from launch, flight controllers will conduct a poll to proceed with the final launch countdown. And about 5 minutes from launch, the vehicle will switch to internal power. Then just about 3 minutes and 30 seconds before launch, auto sequence handoff for terminal countdown will be initiated, and that will mark the time the computers take over for the final milestones before launch.
054, 055, 056.
LC CMD on countdown 1.
Flight pressure.
Stand by, CMD.
And those constraints will be waived from 4,000 to 3,850.
And go ahead, CMD.
Yeah, CMD. Cygnus is in launch mode and nominal.
Roger that. We'll check 407 complete. And launch team LC on countdown 1 with poll to proceed with final countdown. GSO. RSL.
RSOs go.
TD.
TDs go.
Prop lead.
Prop leads go.
Stage 1.
Stand by, LC.
MES1.
MES1 go.
GCE.
GCs go. Sorry.
ACE.
Aces go.
Mars.
Mars is go.
CMD.
CMD is go.
And LD.
I'd like to hear from stage 1 first.
Yep.
Stage
stand
1
by.
is go.
Stage 1 is go.
LD is go.
NG.
Northrop Grumman is proud to honor accomplished NASA astronaut and the first Asian American in space, Ellison Onizuka. In our current challenging times, we reflect on Ellison's inspirational words. The people that make the world run, whose names will go down in the history books, are not the cynics, the critics, or the armchair quarterbacks. They are the adventurists, the explorers, and the doers of the world. When they see a wrong or a problem, they do something about it. When they see a vacant place in our knowledge, they work to fill the void. And today, we will do just that. Aloha to the SS Ellison Onizuka. Northrop Grumman is go for launch.
And I copy. We're go to proceed with final countdown. Check 407. Fly high, Ethan. Ops 2, step 408. You're go to start engine evacuation.
LC Ops 2, engine evacuation started.
And you just heard the poll to proceed with the final countdown to launch, and all teams are polling a go. And, of course, a tribute to Ellison Onizuka, who this Cygnus spacecraft is dedicated after. Now coming up on 10 minutes away from launch, and everything is still proceeding smoothly for launch at 5:01 and 5 seconds p.m. Central Time, 6:01 and 5 seconds p.m. Eastern Time.
Passing T-minus 10 minutes.
Once we get to that launch time today, the first thing that will occur is the Stage 1 ignition, and you'll see liftoff just a few seconds after that, and those main two engines will burn for about 3 minutes and 18 seconds before cutting off, and Stage 1 will separate. Cygnus will coast for a bit until fairing separation, when the external cover that protects the spacecraft during launch will separate. The interstage adapter that connects the first and second stages will separate at about 4 minutes into flight, and then Stage 2 ignition, which is that solid rocket fuel that will burn for 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Once the second stage burns out, we'll be listening for a call of orbital insertion at 6 minutes and 52 seconds after launch. The vehicle will coast for 2 minutes before Cygnus separation at 9 minutes and 9 seconds after liftoff. And at the time of launch, the International Space Station will be flying 260 statute miles over the southern Indian Ocean.
ACS VDMs enabled, voltage nominal, ODM commands clear.
And a copy all, check 410 and check 411. Step 412, not required for today's operation.
Now just about 8 minutes and 30 seconds to launch. Again, that next milestone we'll hear will be for the vehicle to be turned to internal power at 5 minutes out.
And we're at T-minus 8 minutes.
LC site control, GN2 conditioning initiated.
And I copy GN2 conditioning initiated. Passing T-minus 7 minutes.
Now inside 7 minutes, you've been hearing teams running through some of these final milestones, and the internal power has been activated. Again, it'll be switched over to internal power at the 5-minute mark.
Okay, copy. And when you come back up in 4 minutes, will you be ready to roll?
Hope so, stand by.
Okay, copy that.
LC prop lead, VTSO activation verified.
Roger that. Check 414, Ops 2, initialize ground ordnance power supplies.
LC Ops 2, ground ordnance power supplies initialized.
Ground ordnance power supplies nominal.
Check 415 and 416.
LC Site Control, FA ECS transfer to GN2 confirmed.
Copy that, Site Control. Check 417. T-minus 5 minutes. Ops 2, you go to initiate engine priming.
Engine priming started.
Ops 1, transfer avionics to internal power.
LC Ops 1, all internal power on. Standby 5. And all external power off.
Internal power is nominal.
Ops 1, open FTS umbi loop.
FTS umbi loop open and green.
You just heard those calls to initiate internal power for the vehicle, so internal power is now on, and all systems are still proceeding on track for launch just 4 minutes from now.
3, 2, 1, mark. Arm command sent.
SNAs, ODMs, all armed.
Copy that. T-minus 4 minutes.
LCMES1, step 426, priming verif.
Copy that. Check 426 complete. And TD, I'll wait for your report on range status. LCTD, we are green. Copy, range green. Check 425. Step 427, not required. Phase 3 dynamic limits will be active at T-minus 3 minutes.
FC commanded to flight mode.
Check 429.
Auto sequence start.
LCTD, we're green for all systems. Green for all systems.
ODM bus voltages and currents nominal.
Copy like one, and I copy. TD, we'll check 430, 431. GNC 1, verify ready for nav mode.
LC, GNC 1, orb nav ready for nav.
Ops 2, step 433, switch to nav.
LC Ops 2, orb nav, switch to navigate.
2 minutes and 30 seconds to launch, still counting down to that exact liftoff time at 5:01 and 5 seconds p.m. Central Time, 6:01 and 5 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. Tanks will be pressurized at about the T-minus 40 seconds until liftoff, and we'll be counting down to liftoff from there.
T-minus 2 minutes. Mark. Passing through T-minus 1 minute, 30 seconds. T-minus 1 minute. Mark.
40 seconds until liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds. Mark.
$20 seconds to liftoff.
T-minus 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition.
Main engine start. And we have liftoff at Antares for the NG-60 mission to the Wallace Flight Facility. Engines at 100%. Attitude nominal.
The SS Ellison Onizuka now on its way to the International Space Station to deliver more than 8,200 pounds of cargo. Good first stage performance so far.
AV and power subsystems are nominal. NG-16, all systems are nominal. Engines at 100%. Duration of stage 1 burn is approximately 3 minutes and 18 seconds, currently at 65 seconds. Passing through 40,000 feet, passing max Q.
First stage now passing through the area of maximum dynamic pressure. Again, this first stage will burn for about 3 minutes and 18 seconds until main engine cutoff.
All subsystems continue to perform as expected, passing 70,000 feet. Mission time plus 110 seconds. Engines continue at 100%, core pressures nominal, all vehicle subsystems nominal, passing 120,000 feet.
2 minutes, 20 seconds into flight, everything still proceeding nominal.
1 more minute. Attitude nominal, all GNC performance as expected. And Terry's performance continues nominal. Throttle down to 80%.
Throttling down 3 minutes into flight, main engine cutoff coming soon.
Throttle down to 55%. All systems nominal. Stage 1 MECO.
We have main engine cutoff and Terry's entering into a co-stage, standing by for stage 1 separation.
Then stage 2 ignition.
Stage 1 separation confirmed.
And Terry's is in coast phase, attitude nominal. Fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we have stage 2 ignition. Stage 2 will burn for roughly 2 minutes and 30 seconds. All systems continue nominal.
Stage 2 ignition is confirmed. Stage 2 is that solid rocket fuel that will burn for about 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Burnout will come at 6 minutes and 52 seconds into the flight today. And as we lose sight of the vehicle, we're now switching to animation.
4.5 kilometers per second. Altitude approaching 140 kilometers.
Now 5 minutes into flight, everything proceeding smoothly.
Stage 2 burn continues, all systems nominal. Approaching 150 kilometers in altitude. Stage 2, all systems are nominal. Approximately 1 minute to stage 2 burnout. Altitude 170 kilometers. All systems continue to perform as expected. Approximately 30 seconds to stage 2 burnout. Stage 2 burnout. All systems nominal.
And stage 2 burnout is confirmed.
Series will coast for approximately 2 minutes till spacecraft separation. Antares is in orbit. Altitude nearly 180 kilometers. Attitude nominal. Attitude nominal. Antares continues to orient and prepare for spacecraft separation in a little more than 1 minute. All subsystems nominal. Altitude 179 kilometers. Roughly 30 seconds to spacecraft separation.
Standing by for spacecraft separation.
Attitude nominal. And we have spacecraft separation. Go Cygnus.
Spacecraft separation confirmed, and Cygnus has separated from the second stage. And Northrop Grumman teams now celebrating the confirmation of spacecraft separation.
LC with that. Flyout calls are completed.
Copy that. ACE Okay, launch team, let's maintain protocol on station here. We're in our post-launch checklist. Prop 1's already given us step 444, pulse purging is in progress. And GNC 1, I'll wait for your call on status for step 445, state vector.
LC GNC 1 in work.
And I copy in work. And site control, step 446, you can remove AFBA GN2 flow and reconfigure ECS to post-launch.
In work.
Core 1 LC, step 447, direct personnel to power off the MS ground equipment and report when complete.
Yeah, copy that, LC. We'll get that in work once personnel can return to the LEV.
Yep, copy that. And, right, same thing for 448. Understood.
With that confirmation of successful orbital insertion, Cygnus is now on its way to the International Space Station, where it will arrive in 2 days on Thursday, August 12th, to deliver more than 8,200 pounds of cargo. Back with us now from Northrop Grumman is Antares System Engineering Program Manager Christina Halona. Christina, what will the Northrop Grumman teams in Dulles do here on the ground between now until Cygnus arrives to the space station?
Yeah, so the Northrop Grumman teams in Dulles has quite a few things that they'll be doing. So they operate the Cygnus spacecraft basically now that we have been released from Antares rocket. So from separation to reach from separation to destructive reentry at the end of the mission, the Dulles team performs various operations, including, initial vehicle configuration following insertion orbit, which include priming the propulsion system. They'll also have the solar array deployment as well that will be happening here with you soon here in about an hour, hour and a half. And then they'll also be planning and executing various maneuvers to change Cygnus's orbit to rendezvous to the ISS. So that'll be continually changing throughout their maneuvers to get to the laboratory. And then there's also vehicle system checkout. So we continue to monitor the spacecraft as well to make sure it's healthy. And everything is looking great on the spacecraft. And then at the end, they'll finally perform vehicle configurations to perform the final rendezvous as they arrive to the ISS.
And looking forward to Cygnus departure in November, Cygnus will perform some secondary operations. Can you go over some of those?
Yeah, so Cygnus actually has 2 secondary mission objectives for this NG-16 mission. After it departs from the International Space Station, there's one that is a passive payload from NASA called CREPI, and it stands for Kentucky Reentry Probe Experiment, and the payload will be loaded into the pressurized volume of the Cygnus with the disposal cargo items. And then the other payload is Purple, which is short for Prototype Infrared Payload. Purple is a Northrop Grumman built payload and will be tested and calibrated on while Cygnus is burst to the ISS. And the Purple payload 3 days of operations following departure to perform data collections and data downlink. So we still have those 2 missions to complete after we are unberthed from the ISS. So Cygnus has a lot of work of it ahead until here in November.
Thanks, Christina. Again, we are looking forward to welcoming Cygnus to the International Space Station, and thanks again for joining us.
Of course, thank you.
And now joining us is NASA Systems Engineering Integration Office Manager Jeff Arend. Jeff, how important are these resupply missions in terms of the continuing resupply of this station and the science they deliver to the crew on board?
So I guess first off, hi, Courtney. But these commercial resupply missions are very important to continue the advancing science on board the station. Over 3,000 experiments have been conducted during the station's lifetime, which we're now coming up on 21 years of continuous human presence. On this flight, Cygnus is packed with more than 3,700 kilos of supplies, research, technology demonstrations, and hardware. In the tech demo category, We're really excited to add the 4-bed CO2 scrubber. It's an upgraded version of Seadra, which is our primary CO2 removal system on board. And for hardware upgrades, we're equally excited to be flying the third IROSA mod kit, which will enable a future solar array upgrade in the future.
All right, and what's ahead for the crew on Station 1 Cygnus arrives in terms of capture, cargo operations, and science?
So the Cygnus spacecraft will arrive at Space Station in a couple days, Thursday, August 12th, at approximately 5:10 Central Time. NASA astronaut Megan McArthur will be primed to capture the spacecraft with the Canadarm2, and she's backed up by ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet. Following capture, the flight controllers in Houston will command the installation of Cygnus on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module, will it remain for about 3 months. The crew will stay busy unpacking and conducting these research activities with the first several days being extremely critical for several experiments. The ones in particular are cardinal muscle, anti-atrophy, and cell gravasensing. The crew will also be preparing for a future spacewalk to install the mod kit on the P4 truss to prepare the station for that future solar array upgrade that I mentioned earlier. In addition to upgrading the ISS power, these arrays are also helping us prove the solar array technology that will be used on the gateway around the moon with the Artemis program. So overall, very, very exciting times for us.
Exciting indeed, Jeff. As always, thanks for your time and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Courtney. Thank you very much.
Recapping some milestones today, the launch time today was moved to the back of the launch window after teams detected an apparent helium pressurization valve leak on the vehicle. The issue was quickly resolved and Cygnus lifted off from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Wallops Island, Virginia at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport Pad 0A on time at 5:01 and 5 seconds p.m. Central Time, 6:01 and 5 seconds p.m. Eastern Time to begin its journey to the International Space Station, where it will deliver more than 8,200 pounds of research, crew supplies, and hardware. At the time of launch, the International Space Station was flying 260 statute miles over the southern Indian Ocean. Solar array deploy is expected to occur about 1 hour and 14 minutes after launch. So, within the next hour, if all goes as planned, Cygnus will complete its solar array deployment, which will take about 30 minutes. We will not be on air for that milestone, but once that activity is complete, we will update the station webpage on nasa.gov. With Cygnus now on its way to the International Space Station, we hope you'll join us back on air when Cygnus arrives to the station in the early morning on Thursday, August 12th. NASA television coverage for Cygnus arrival and capture will begin at 3:45 a.m. Central Time, 4:45 a.m. Eastern Time, for capture around 5:10 a.m. Central Time, 6:10 a.m. Eastern Time. And then we'll be back on air at 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Cygnus installation operations coverage. With Cygnus now on its way to the International Space Station to deliver more than 8,200 pounds of cargo, that'll wrap up our coverage for today. This is Mission Control Houston.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, I am ready for the event.
National Park Service, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Ray Savasho with the National Park Service. How do you hear me?
Ray, I have you loud and clear.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This is a really exciting opportunity, and I'm so pleased and excited to be speaking with you in the International Space Station. I understand that you are a very big advocate and fan of national parks, and maybe displaying that admiration right now with your outfit. But before we go too far into national parks, we're also curious here on the ground. How fast are you traveling, and what part of the world are you currently over now?
Well, the International Space Station travels about 5 miles per second, so that would get us from California to New York in about 10 minutes, and we get all the way around the world in about 90 minutes. Right now, we're over the Atlantic Ocean. I have a mapping program that tells me we just passed over Central America, and we're over the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow, that is amazing, and that is quite a rapid speed. Can you describe your mission and what a typical day is like on the International Space Station?
Sure. Well, basically there are 7 of us living aboard an orbiting research laboratory in low Earth orbit, and we conduct, during the 6-month stay up here, we'll conduct hundreds of science experiments, and as well as technology demonstrations, as well as basically keeping the space station in working order. So on a given day, we might be hands-on an experiment that's very involved, or we might do something where we're just changing out cartridges for an experiment that's being monitored by investigators on the ground. We also, as I mentioned, we have technology demonstrations that are ongoing, and so those are technologies that help us here on the space station, such as like water reclamation, will also help us in our exploration missions going out to the moon and onto Mars, but technologies that can also be used in remote areas on Earth where maybe folks don't have access to clean water all the time. So that's another example of the kinds of things we do up here, plus maintenance. So on any given day, you might be doing some plumbing or some electrical work or some mechanical work, so it kind of covers a big spectrum.
That's really interesting. It actually sounds, in an unusual way, not too dissimilar from some of the activities that go on in our national parks, with all the various activities and diversity of responsibilities that occur to both take care of the space station, but as well as take care of our national parks. We're so grateful for the photos of parks that you have taken and you've shared from both the Space Shuttle Atlantis as well as from the International Space Station. They provide a truly unique and fascinating view of the national parks. And as you know, the national parks protect amazing landscapes, everything from deserts to high mountains to vast wetlands. What is it like observing these places from space? Can you actually see them, and can you make out the characteristics and the features of some of these national parks?
Well, Ray, I'm so glad that people are enjoying the photographs. It's been a really great hobby for me, a really engaging hobby, to teach myself to spot the national parks from space and then teach myself gradually to take better pictures of them. The different parks, of course, they're all different sizes, different kinds of features. But yes, you can absolutely spot the characteristic features from space. Some are very obvious, like the Grand Canyon. Some are less obvious. And so what I have done is gradually, go over an area and I can pick out, some of the big features, and then as we go back over those areas in ensuing weeks, learn to spot the features that can direct me to really find some of the smaller areas. Recently, we had a beautiful pass over the Southwest, and I'm just going to start sharing the pictures in the next week, but I saw Joshua Tree and Zion and Bryce. Bryce was really hard for me to find, and so you take a whole bunch of pictures, and then I go back and look at them and compare them to a mapping program and teach myself to find some of the characteristic features. So it's really, like I said, it's a compelling and engaging hobby, and I love, thinking about the parks and hopefully planning some more trips for the future when I get home.
That sounds absolutely incredible. I know I find myself trying to do the same thing when I'm flying in an airplane, looking for features that I might recognize, but I can't imagine what it must be like to do it from space. Hey, in addition to some of these natural features and these amazing landscapes, national parks also protect examples of our history and our cultural heritage. Are you able to see some of these smaller features, like, for example, the Gateway Arch in St. Louis or the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor?
Well, those features, as you can imagine, are much harder to spot real time. As you know, we're going 5 miles per second, so it's pretty tricky. One of my crewmates really enjoys taking city photography, and so he takes some really magnified pictures. So we have a couple different of the kinds of cameras that we use. He'll take pictures of cities with cameras like this one, and he has gotten an amazing photograph that shows the Gateway Arch, even showing the shadow of the arch over the river, which is just incredible. I tend to take photographs that are wider area, and maybe I'll graduate to a camera like this later on, but it takes a pretty steady hand. I tend to use a camera like this so I can get a wider area and then zoom in as I start to identify different features.
That's great. It sounds like it's a lot of fun, but also, like I mentioned, it's really, really an important and helpful thing for us to see here on the ground too. So that's great. So it sounds like you've seen some of the Southwest parks recently. When you see national parks, are they, do they stand out? What do they look like compared to the surrounding landscape? Is this something that when you look at it, do you, perhaps if you didn't know it was a national park, would you say, wow, that's an amazing, amazing place. I wonder what that is. Do they stand out in the landscape?
They absolutely do stand out in the landscape. They're generally, they very much draw the eye, again, especially like the Grand Canyon, but even the smaller parks. I first noticed Zion just because my eyes were drawn to the incredible pattern that area makes, viewed from 250 miles up. And so I took all the pictures, and then I tried to figure out what it was and thought, oh my gosh, that's what Zion looks like from space. How amazing. So they absolutely do stand out. Generally, some of the larger parks, of course, are away from populated areas, but some of them are much closer, and so sometimes you can define the park boundaries almost by seeing the interstates going on either side of it. So you start to learn kind of those different ways of recognizing the parks as you go over.
Excellent. Yeah, I bet it gives you sort of a vivid display of, in some ways, the importance of having these places set aside so that people can continue to enjoy them long into the future. I wonder also, when you see a park from space, how does that resonate with you for parks you may have visited on the ground? Does it look very different, or are you able to kind of make a connection based on an experience maybe you've had on the ground, or when you're up in space thinking, oh yeah, I can kind of imagine what it was like when I was at that park?
I think it's absolutely all of those things, Ray. There are, basically it brings back a lot of great memories for parks that I have been to before, such as Yosemite, my parents taking us there as teenagers and really kind of falling in love with the great outdoors at that point and knowing that hiking and backpacking and camping was going to be always part of my life. Grand Canyon with my college roommate, Zion with my grad school friends, Yellowstone, both in the summer and the winter with my husband. These are amazing, breathtaking places. And the more I see them up here, I have those memories, and also then seeing parks I haven't been to before and thinking, oh wow, that looks amazing. I really want to go there. I want to learn about that environment.
That's great. I know certainly when I've visited parks, both as a child and growing up with my family, but even now recently in my work with the National Park Service, one of the incredible things to do in parks, and this is actually one of the most rapidly expanding areas of activity and enjoyment by people visiting parks, is to use parks as a place to see the sky, to use it as a window to the sky, and particularly to the dark sky. So national parks have become, in many places, these magical places to view the night sky that is becoming, much more difficult to see in other places with more lights and more urban areas. So it's become a great venue for introducing people to the amazing things that you can view above, to viewing space, to viewing stars, and to learning about things like astronomy and what we can learn from space about the Earth. What would you suggest to people that want to learn more about the night sky, and how might this be a good way to excite people about space exploration and learning about astronomy?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Ray. Looking up at the dark sky from parks, I think a lot of people, when they spend their lives in cities or near populated areas, they have no idea just the sheer numbers of stars that are out there, and other features as well. And you can start to see things that you couldn't imagine when you're out at the parks and in a dark area. So I think, the advice I would give people is follow your curiosity. When you've seen something that astonishes you, make the effort to try to figure out what that is. And so for me, I love learning from books. I love to read books. I get library books all the time, and also museums. If sitting down with a book is not your thing, there are lots of great museums that can start to teach you the basics of astronomy and help you follow your curiosity down some of those paths. And of course, there's tons of online resources. NASA has some great resources. There's a video series called What's Up that kind of tells you what you can see in the night sky that month, and lots of great lesson plans as well for folks that are trying to maybe, for educators who would like to start an astronomy unit with their students.
That is great. That sounds like a really amazing partnership and relationship that we in the national parks can have with you up in space, and with NASA to help provide the window from national parks, but then the information and the educational opportunities that people can experience when they're in national parks, looking up at the sky. Speaking of the seeing national parks from the International Space Station, I think national parks also provide an amazing place to look for and perhaps even see the International Space Station. Have you ever seen this station from Earth, or even from a national park?
I have definitely spotted the space station many, many times, also while camping, probably so many times that I can't remember specific spots. I'm usually, out in a parking lot somewhere